Okay, so let's add some text to this document. So I do want you to add some text. It could be a phrase of your choice as long as it's school appropriate. This original phrase, when we made the poster, it was just from the TV show at that time. So it's sort of relevant to that. But you can pick anything you want. I just want you to kind of experiment with using the text tool and how it works a little bit different in Adobe Illustrator. So if you go over here to the toolbar, the text tool is the same icon that is in Photoshop. Okay, it's also called the type tool. You can hit the letter T and it'll bring that up. But if you click on it, much like in Photoshop, you can do a couple of different things. Okay, you can either click and draw a box, like a text box of your own, and just kind of place it where you want it to be. And it will fill it with lorem ipsum, just like it did in Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to let go of that just to show you the other thing. You can also just click and it'll drop and start writing text that way. Now, I will mention I don't like that second method as much. It makes it harder to kind of create paragraphs and to arrange it in a way that you want. It just kind of makes one long continuous line of text constantly, and it can be a little bit irritating. So I recommend always create your, like, draw your own text box. So since I know I want to put the text down here on the snow, and I recommend that's where you put yours too, I'm just going to draw that text box back over here. I'm still working on the same layer that I created the barn on and the ground on. Shouldn't be a big issue. But just like in Photoshop, you can hit backspace and it'll get rid of that lorem ipsum. I'm just going to copy the same phrase from the poster, which you're welcome to, but you can change it. And by default, it's not going to be anything special. It's just going to be really basic, generic font. But much like in Photoshop, if you've typed it out, take your mouse and just highlight the text. And you'll notice over here on the right in the properties panel, there are actually a ton of settings for typography and for text. And we will get into those a whole lot more. But just FYI, so you understand the terminology, a letter and a number in typography terms is referred to as a character. Okay, and some of you may know that already, especially if you're like in certain foreign languages that write different types of characters or letters. But every letter or anything that is created as a mark that's meant to be written and read is referred to as a character. So if you look over on the right where you see that word character, that's where you can change simple things like the font. So pick out a font that you like, and it always has a preview. Okay, and we will get into text a whole lot more, but just pick something. I don't care what it is, just preferably not Comic Sans, just preferably. Okay, so you can get something that's really cheesy like this, and that's fine. Okay, you can also choose right below where the font is. There's different settings based on each font. If they have italic, bold, or other types of styles for their font, they'll show up where it says regular. If they don't, it'll just say regular. But you could change your size right here. So where you see a small t and a large t, and typically by default it's 12 points, you can adjust it. Okay, so you can do this a couple of different ways. There is a drop down that says the text only gets as big as 72, but that's a lie, much like it was in Photoshop. They'll get to up to like 200 or 2099. So make it pretty large, right? And we'll get into some of these other settings. You can, where it says paragraph, like center it if you want to. And if you want to change the color, all you have to do is either go up here to your little color function, which is this little color palette, and pick a new color. You can also just come over here at the bottom of the toolbar and double click on the square and pick a color. Or if you notice, like if it's highlighted, you can hit the letter I and grab a color, okay? And it will automatically update the font color as well, okay? So I'm not gonna do anything more than that. When I go back to the move tool, I can pick it up and move it around like any other object. But that's all I'm gonna do for the text. Just something simple, just try it out, just kind of feel it a little bit, and we will get way more into that later, okay? So that's it for the text.